Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching and listening to Historian Radio's Echoes of the News, and I am Muhammad Hussain Qazi, and these are today's headlines from the past. On this day, the 15th of October, 1666, the first waistcoat was worn by King Charles II, according to Pepys. The first waistcoat being worn by King Charles II on this very day would popularize its use into daily wear, and it would be immortalized to the point where it is still used today as part of the iconic three-piece suit. Continuing on this date, in 1815, Napoleon Bonaparte arrived in St. Helena with a party of his followers, where he would spend most of his time reading English newspapers and writing. He would eventually perish on the island of St. Helena, where he would have faced his final exile. Napoleon Bonaparte was one of the most influential of French leaders in the 1800s. Continuing on this date, in 1851, the Great Exhibition closed at Hyde Park, but its unique Crystal Palace was re-erected in South London. The Great Exhibition of 1851, or well, earlier than 1851, was one of the most iconic and historical moments in the history of the British Empire, for it would be the only exhibition to take place in the Victorian era, which would showcase different items from different parts of what was then the grand and large British Empire. Continuing on this date, on this very day, the 15th of October 1928, the Graf Zeppelin made its first transatlantic crossing from Friedrichshafen to Lakehurst, New Jersey. This would be one of the most significant distances covered by airship between Germany to the United States. The Graf Zeppelin is also known as one of the most iconic of the Zeppelin aircraft. And moving forward, on this very day in 1964, Nikita Khrushchev was deposed while holidaying in the Black Sea area and was replaced by Leonid Brezhnev as the General Secretary of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, and subsequently he, that would be to say, Leonid Brezhnev, would assume the office of the head of state of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, also known as the Soviet Union. And finally, on this very day in 1978, Irene Miller and Vera Komakova became the first women to reach the summit of Annapurna, one in the Himalayas. This would be a significant date in the history of mountaineering. Now we move on to the next segment of our show, where we recount the famous births and deaths of famous figures from the 19th and 20th centuries and sometimes earlier. Born on this day in 70 BC was Virgil, the great Roman poet. He is regarded as one of the fathers of modern Roman art and literature. Well, literary art, that is to say. And continuing on this date, in 1836, on this very day, Friedrich Nietzsche was born, German existential philosopher who is regarded as the father of modern existential philosophy. And interestingly so, on this day, two spies were killed. First of the two spies was Mata Hari, legendary spy who was known to be an interesting spy, to say the least, with an illustrious record, was executed on this day in 1917. Following Mata Hari's execution, in 1945, Pierre Laval, one of the central figures of the Vichy French government, was also executed on this very day. And following their executions, Hermann Goering, the commander of the Third Reich's Air Force, committed suicide in order to escape his fate, which would be sealed in the Nuremberg trials. And so, with the death of these three individuals, it would be a series of significant dates. Well, it would be a significant date in the history of the First and Second World War on this very day. And so, on that note, we conclude today's headlines of the day. You were watching and listening to Historian Radio's Echoes of the News, and I am Muhammad Hussain Qazi, and these are today's headlines as history first heard them. Good night.